This is a IP65 device right here, but your iPhone right there that's on the desk here, that's actually an IP68.
This is more rugged?
It can go deeper in water than this can and still operate. But have you taken that in the pool swimming with you recently?
I'm not going to risk it. I'm not going to risk it.
Yeah.
Not yet. Not yet.
And you kind of have a device there I'd love for you to talk about a little bit, because this has my eye.
So this device right here, this is our BCO4. This is our body cam.
There's a lot of things that I think people don't think about when they think about hardware in the oil and gas sector.
So the exploration of oil and gas, it involves areas that are really dangerous. There's also other areas that are very dangerous in terms of the environment that you might not know about. Think about pharmaceuticals. When in a pharmaceutical plant, there's actually gases like that. The other place it's also gets involved in is actually agriculture. Actually, the dust from agriculture, from all the feed, that's actually can be a flame. It can blow up.
That one when Charlie told me that one blew my mind.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of SOTI TV, your deep dive into technology, innovation, and trends. I'm your host, Mario, joined by, again, my co-host, Mikhail. Mikhail, what's going on today? What do you got for me?
Mario, thanks so much. We have a very exciting guest with us, somebody that I had a chance to meet a few months ago at a very cool event, Director of Product Solutions at Getac, Charlie Gibbs. Welcome.
Thanks, Mikhail. I'm very happy to be here with you and Mario today in lovely Canada.
Charlie, tell us a little bit more. What is your role in TICE at Getac?
So what I do at Getac is actually two things. One is I work with our teams in terms of developing products. So Getac, we manufacture all types of ruggedized hardware, whether it be video or computer products. And then the second part I do is I work with all of our partners, because everything that you do in terms of technology and in terms of digitization, it relies really on three different things. You've got to have a device, you've got to have applications, and then you've got to have some services around that really drive that use case and enable it. So that's what my role is I started in my career in terms of technology and sales, and then I've also developed more into the product specialist now, using a little bit of my background in engineering. And at Getac, what we do is we really work together with those partners and our factories to devise those next generations of digital technology that really works in mission critical applications.
So I just want to go back a little bit into history, and we look at some of the legacy operating systems, and primarily when we look back, we look at the Win Mobile, Win CE days, right?
The heydays.
The heydays. Ruggedized meant something. Like you could take one of those devices, whip it across a room, and it would still keep working as if nothing had happened, right? And what I do find is that Windows at that time, or Win Mobile, Win CE, was king of that space, right? Looking now as we start to look at ruggedized markets, do you feel that Windows is still king of the space when it comes to the ruggedized market, or what's your opinion on that?
So, you know, definitely the ecosystem has evolved over time, right? So in terms of rugged now, we have rugged Android, we have rugged Windows, but Windows is still probably the king, at least in our mission critical applications, because of the factors of a couple things. One, the legacy applications. There's a lot of legacy applications that are out there that have been in use for 10, even 20 years, and having those work on a system requires Windows. The second thing is security. Windows, just as a technology, is a little bit more secure than Android due to the fact that you have hardware tie-ins as well as the software tie-ins that work in with Windows. And then the ecosystem, just because of security and the fact that enterprises have been using and relying on Windows for over 20 years, it's really built into the ecosystem. That said, there's a lot of advancements in Android and as well iOS, which isn't really in the rugged space, but the iOS and Android has really changed the applications in terms of how apps work versus Windows, which was more of an operating system, and then the applications on top of it.
One other thing as well, like we're on the Windows space, right? But you even look at the Microsoft landscape, only as of Windows 10 did they really introduce a native management stack directly in Windows. Prior to Windows 10, it was very much, I'd say ad hoc, just for our viewers out there, but you even see that a lot of organizations are doubling down on Windows today, and that they have this standardized framework for management now, which I think is really key from an industry perspective.
It does, and I think it also ties in also to the Microsoft's cloud, right? So Microsoft's also very big on the cloud side, and everything is moving to the cloud these days. And the fact that you have the hardware on the end user endpoint tied in with the actual servers and have that encryption all the way through the system, it really adds that security level that I think is a little bit different.
Yeah. And I know we've been talking about Windows quite a bit, but I know the SOTI and Getac journey started in the Android space.
space.
So I'd love to dive a little more into that.
Yeah, so Getac's been around in the Android space for a while, and actually there's a third leg too that was really important from Getac perspective to the partnership with SOTI, and that's also Linux.
Okay.
The fact that you support all 3 operating systems in terms of your management suite and in terms of your software programs really makes a good symbiote or good relationship with Getac in terms of what we come out with in terms of our hardware. And in terms of Android itself, Android has really developed over the years. I mean, Android's moving fast. It changes every year. It changes in terms of the enterprise. There's now been Android for enterprise for over 10 years.
Yep.
And that allows enterprises to have some of those security features that you need and want, or the ones that are going to come out in the future for that hardware. And once again, I think Android's been tying their hardware a little bit more closely to the security features. So, with each release of Android, it's getting more and more secure.
You're right about that. So Android pretty heavily in about at least minimum OSs 11 and 12 has been doing OS boot security. They also have things such as like Android Play Protect, where they're scanning applications as they're downloaded, whether they come from third-party sources or directly from an MDM. At the operating system layer, if they see that the kernel has been modified in any way, shape, or form, it's able to actually respond to it. So Google and Android have taken a larger step and approach to move away from that thought process that it is only simply an open source platform, which again, ASOP, Android Open Source Platform, does start that way. It gives a lot of our OEMs the capabilities of taking a base operating system, which is vanilla, and then modifying it to really match your portfolio and your needs as an OEM. But a lot of organizations, especially when you look at, let's say public sector, or if you look at military, that idea of open source is quite scary, right? And now that I'm seeing the growth over the years about really trying to harden the Android Enterprise recommended framework, it's really changed a lot of organizations' feelings about Android versus Windows, right? One thing I did want to ask you is that we have all these OS security options now, right? We have Android, we have iOS, we have Windows, we have Linux, right? What I really wanted to get your idea is the difference between commercial grade Android versus Android Enterprise and forward. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like the differences between the two?
So there's advantages and disadvantages to both, right? So in terms of the actual commercial grade Android out there, that's something where you're going to get the latest version of Android, the most updates, the fastest changes in terms of the operating system. So you're going to have the fastest, best operating system. The enterprise version of Android gives you more stability. So it'll give you the ability to support the OS for 5 years, 7 years. It'll also make sure that how you can actually activate it, the Play Store. You can turn the Play Store off. Those security features really help the difference between the enterprise version and the consumer version of Android. You also don't get any of the bloatware in terms of the software, all those different apps that are on there. So it's a much more cleaner, much easier one to manage using Mobi Control or other MDM products out there.
And I think one other thing as well is when we talk about really even the enterprise space, it's also the speed of getting these devices out in the field, right? So whether we talk about autopilot for Windows or we talk about zero-touch deployment on the Android landscape, I think these enterprise-grade features where a lot of consumers don't see it, it's no use for them. But the enterprise, they're absolutely paramount to making sure that these devices get in the hands of the people that need to use them, that need to drive a lot of these organizational operations on a day-to-day basis. But one other thing I wanted to ask you about, it's a competitive landscape out there. So we have recently, looked at Panasonic dropping support for Android.
Sure.
So I would love to get kind of your vision on that, because I know they're a heavy player also in the Windows space. How do you kind of see that pivot?
Yeah, so it's just a matter of support, I think, in terms of the devices themselves. So what Panasonic's recently done is they've actually partnered now with Honeywell. So now they're selling some of the Honeywell devices. And I think it was just a place where they just needed to get out of one part of the ecosystem, because there's a lot of, once again, building up an Android system or building up a Windows system, there's a lot of resources involved in either one of them. And the fact they just decided to exit that market, because the Android space has just become so many devices and so many players out there versus the Windows space. There's probably about, I'd say, 20 different ODMs from East Asia that make Android devices that are in the rugged space now, whereas in Windows, you're only going to find 4 or 5 or 6 players out there. With Marcel's, Panasonic, and Dell, another big player out there. But that's really the Windows place, and that's what's been around for over 30 years in terms of the rugged space.
And just for our viewers out there, so you mentioned ODM.
Yep.
Can you just explain a little bit for our
that's
viewers just what that means?
That's a device manufacturer.
Okay.
An original OEM. It's like an OEM, but it's a device manufacturer. So they make the devices. One of the things that differentiates Getac versus some of our competitors is we actually build our own devices.
Okay.
So for instance, an ODM would buy those computers and then market them under a different name.
Like a white label program.
That's right, a white label
Okay.
program.
So that also allows you to tie into the customization that we talked a little bit earlier. So you have a lot more flexibility around your production line and how you can actually customize those devices for different use cases.
Yeah, that's one of the things that really Getac does very well is that we customize our devices for the use case. So Getac actually offers over 12 different devices out in the field right now in terms of computers, so different form factors that once again fit that mission, anywhere from an 8-inch all the way up to a 14-inch devices in terms of tablets, and then also laptops up to 15 inches. So actually, one of the devices I brought today is one of our newest devices out there, which is our V120. This is our Windows convertible laptop, and when we talk about Getac and how we differentiate, we are the only ones who manufacture what's a convertible
I
laptop.
haven't even seen that yet.
Yep. So this actually is our second generation of this device, the V series. It's convertible. You see it turns into a tablet, and then it goes back again into the actual laptop mode. And then the other thing about ruggedized devices is the idea that you have like modular. So this has batteries that you can actually hot swap and take out. If I can get this battery to swap. Let's see if I can get this thing to work. No, fingernail. So there's the battery. So you can swap these batteries out over time. So you can actually run this computer 24/7 by swapping out batteries. And that's one of the things about the designs and the customizations are those things that really help the users be able to use their devices anytime, anywhere, when they need it. Because that's the most important thing about a device.
I love that. Well, one of my favorite demo devices is actually sitting right there. My infamous Getac demo device. I think it's done me wonders in all my Windows presentations. But one of the things I was also really interested when we met at Distributech was that you actually offer quite an extended combination of devices plus the operating system that you can put on them. So can you tell us a little bit more? Like, how does customer go through that selection process? How do they match the right hardware with the right OS? And talk a little bit about that customization that you guys offer.
So what we do is we actually have a full team of people out there. We have sales teams, support engineers. So what we do is we do try before you buy. That's really our way of go to market. So you can actually demo 2, 3, 4 Getac devices, see which one fits the need the best, which one has the ports, has those accessories that you need, and then you can try it before you buy it. And then what we do is obviously we tie in the operating system, whether it be Android or whether it be Windows, depending on those devices and how they work. So that's how we do it. And it's really the testing in the field.
And I think, Mario, I know we've talked about applications. It's what's driving a lot of these things. I think for me, it's also, are you finding that a big process or a big part of the selection criteria is the application landscape that kind of drives a customer to one decision or the other?
Always. I mean, the applications are really what drive the users to what devices they need to have, because the applications, whether it be a Windows or an Android device, applications, is what that person needs to do their work. So those application suites really drive the device choice throughout the industry. So we see a lot of Android devices as an example in the field for maybe field service.
Yep.
We also see a lot of Android devices in the warehouse for material handling, for that old, you talked about CE.net. Those old systems, that was all been really taken over by Android. Whereas when you have a field engineer or somebody who has to do, let's say, some data-driven things, they're going to want a Windows device out in the field because that's going to give you more power in terms of CPU horsepower and also the operating system in terms of the applications.
We do find that applications usually drive the decision on purchasing next-gen hardware. When I've looked at some of the device refreshes and over the last 10 years, primarily the first thing is, okay, can you install this application? Mm-hmm. Is it AS400? Some of them still running Telnet. Some of them still running old school, very older ERG systems. And it's very hard to, or ERP systems, and it's really hard to rip those out, right? When you were working in warehouse management, for you to take away what's delivering your stock and then measuring your stock, and you have to flip to a whole new system, you're now possibly impacting what your inventory looks like, which is impacting your customer, which is impacting your delivery. So there's always this constant fear of saying, well, if I move to another operating system, I might not be able to get my current application to work, or they're just going to turn to you and say, make this application work on this operating system. I don't care how you do it, just make sure that it works. And that's always it's a fear-driven decision. It's quite interesting to watch, to say the least.
And the other thing that's always gotten me, and I know this is specific to different industries, but Charlie, we had a good laugh around that, and I asked you, like, what is the difference between semi-rugged, fully rugged, ultra rugged? Like what
ultra rugged.
what are all these terminologies?
Yeah, so in terms of the rugged landscape and what we look at there, it's all these different specifications. So semi-rugged, fully rugged, ultra-rugged, those are all marketing terms. Marketing terms are marketing terms, and then you're trying to make an impression there. But the actual is the specs. So for instance, this V120, this is designed for a 4-foot drop to concrete. We make other devices that are designed for a 6-foot drop to concrete. We make other devices that will do a 3-foot drop to concrete. So that's kind of one of the major tests. The other major test is the IP rating, which is the ingress protection for mainly for water, but it can also be dust. But to give you an example, this is a IP65 device right here, the V120. But your iPhone right there that's on the desk here, that's actually an IP68.
This is more rugged?
Well, it can go in water. It can go deeper in water than this can and still operate. But have you taken that in the pool swimming with you recently?
I'm not going to risk it. I'm not going to risk it.
Yeah.
Not yet. Not yet.
Well, same thing here. We don't try to. This is not designed to work underwater, but it's there just in case.
If I fall into the lake with it, I'll be happy to know
That's
that
right.
I won't have to buy a new phone.
That's right.
You might have to put it in a bag of rice.
And I think that's a really good segue for us. As we talk about the selection of different operating systems, different form factors, different ratings, what is being used in some of these different sectors? And Mario, I know you have one of your favorite sectors that you wanted to dive into, so let's get into it.
Yeah, so at least with the public sector, or at least the safety sector, right? So we're going to refer to like fire, ambulance, policing, right? The one thing that I see time and time again is a body camera being used, right? Mobile device units being put inside a police car, inside of police cars, or having some kind of tablet that goes along with an ambulance driver, right? And you kind of have a device there. I'd love for you to talk about it a little bit, because this has my eye.
That was
and
cool.
I'm super interested.
So this device right here, this is our BCO4. This is our body cam 4th version. It comes in both a 4K version and a 1080p. But the most interesting about this is actually wirelessly enabled. So this has your LTE radio as well as your Wi-Fi on it. And what this does, it gives you a full day shift of operating as a body cam. It's designed exactly like you said for first responders. It's there for risk mitigation, for evidence management, for the safety of both the end user who's being serviced by the agency as well as the agency itself. These cameras actually work in conjunction with our in-car video systems. That's one thing that Getac does that's a little bit different in the market, is we have both video and compute so that we can address that whole first responder ecosystem where they're digitally involved, which is anywhere from the car, in-car video, the cameras within the cars. There's also triggers within those cars. You set up triggers. For instance, you might have a gun rack in there. And if you take a gun out of that gun rack, that sets a trigger. And what that does is it turns on all the cameras within the car so that everything is being recorded. So if there's an incident that happens, you have it there recorded, time-stamped, and also, in terms of security, it's all cloud-based. There's no way you can tamper with the evidence that's on these body cameras.
Yeah, and the reason it's got my interest is even my wife works in law enforcement, and the time that it takes to be able to go ahead and jot down notes, and the amount of memory, and then also having that need to make sure that as you walk over, that there is a sense of safety both on your side while you're servicing your community, and also the person that you're going over to walk over to is paramount, right? And what she's mentioned is without these pieces of technology, without the body camera, without the mobile device unit that sits smack in the car, I don't know what I'm walking into. So if I'm walking over there and I can't clearly see, or I can't clearly record, or I can't understand what threat I'm walking into, that puts every officer at edge, because you don't know what you're walking into. And I love the fact that you have these triggers that you could say, if I looked up, let's say for example, a license plate, we're gonna play devil's advocate for this one, and it comes back that the car is stolen, or the vehicle's license plate is expired.
Yeah,
those triggers can be set that you can actually use this body camera to turn on and say, oh, this is now considered a plausible threat. Now I should start recording, so that you don't have to sit there and go, oh, and then you might have.
That's part of your workflow, right? I mean, I think that's one of the coolest things, right? Like, you definitely talk about efficiency, but sometimes you're in these high intensity situations. The last thing I would want to be worried about is to turn a camera on, or I forgot to turn my camera on. So the way that this technology, and was exciting me when we were chatting about this, was that it is part of your workflow. You are focused on doing your job, not on making sure your technology is turned on for you to do your job.
Yeah, and Mario, just like you, I too have, my brother's a police officer, so he works in law enforcement, and every day, the ability for him to have the body camera and these other things, he can focus on his job, which is serving the public. He doesn't have to worry about anything else that's going on because he knows that all the evidence management's there, all the digitization's there, the fact that all the pieces on his report that he used to have to write down, all that's recorded now. It's much easier for him to just go out and actually work with the people, the citizens.
It's the reports, like the time savings, time savings. Like Mikhail, I couldn't stress the time savings that you got to know the date, the time, the what, when, and where, and how in chronological order. When you have a body camera available and you have the technology to support you, you're now more focused on serving your community than having to remember every single detail. Where that way you can make those split decisions quickly to be able to react to something, right?
I don't think it gets much more mission critical than I think law enforcement and definitely a couple of other use cases we'll be diving into. But the other one that I really wanted to jump into is oil and gas.
Sure.
You know, when we talk about field service, the reality, there's a lot of things that I think people don't think about when they think about hardware in the oil and gas sector. And we had quite an interesting discussion about, so I'd love to tell like our viewers a little bit about how critical are these devices and what's the whole ecosystem surrounding all the hardware that's going into oil and gas, the oil and gas industry.
So in the energy space, or oil and gas is part of right. So the exploration of oil and gas, it involves areas that are really dangerous. There's also other areas that are very dangerous in terms of the environment that you might not know about. Think about pharmaceuticals. When in a pharmaceutical plant, there's actually gases and things like that. The other place that's also gets involved in is actually agriculture. The idea that actually the dust from agriculture, from all the feed, that's actually can be a flame, it can be a fire. It can blow up.
That one when Charlie told me that one blew my mind. Like a grain silo. Like who thought of a grain silo to be an intrinsically safe environment?
I could see it as being, because it's combustible.
It's combustible.
Could you, like, I could not imagine that. You're like thinking the bread's gonna be good to go, the wheat's fine. You walk in there with your cell phone, you turn it on, and all of a sudden this silo is like launching 16 feet into the sky. I never thought for a moment that wheat would be combustible.
It is, it burns. So, and that's what we do. So we design once again, it's specifications. So these are once again designed and tested to either ATEX or to ANSI standards that are basically, as you say, resist explosions, sorry.
So those are like regulations that these devices have to abide.
That's right.
What goes into that, though? Because I know you talked a little bit about what makes that.
It's just the device itself. We add more coatings to it. We add more, we actually take out the connectors, so there's no places. So basically you can't make a spark with the device when it's dropped. So when you drop the device or anything that happens to the device, there is no sparks. So we just add additional coatings. We add additional layers of protection around the device for those certifications.
Is that also like in line with, it's called FIPS, I think is what it's called?
FIPS is different. FIPS is security of hard drives.
Okay.
So FIPS is security around the actual encryption of the hard drives.
I'm trying to remember, I went to an oil and gas show in Calgary, and that was a really big requirement back then. But again, I'm like talking about like six years ago or so. So but the requirements certification is, hey, does it spark? That's the first thing they ask. Hey, does it spark? And then somebody's like, what do you mean, man, does it spark? He goes, it's got a battery in there. Does a battery spark?
You're probably thinking of intrinsically safe.
That's what I thought it was. Okay.
That's the terminology, but that's actually, it's actually not a standard. The standards are ANSI or ATEX.
Okay, got it.
It's intrinsically safe, because once again, I've been in this industry for over 25 years, and that's what we talked about 25 years ago, was intrinsically safe.
Okay, I could see that, right? Because you don't want it to just spark. You're like walking around, and the battery shifts a little bit. It makes a little bit of.
Think about more in a petrochemical plant where you're refining oil into gasoline. That right there, a machine that's doing something in there, doing safety checks within that industry, you need to have a device that's not going to be able to combust.
I could definitely see that, because like in the air itself, you got a little bit of like just like exposure to, like, let's say gas alone. If you got the fumes in there and it starts to build up and build up and build up, like
it's how close you are to the wellhead, right?
Yeah. Could you imagine walking in with your phone? Just,
boom, you're gone.
Yeah, that
happened.
Woo! Sparks flying. I think that's super important to understand with a lot of devices today, is that if you don't take these things into consideration, especially with the mission critical mobility space, where they're intrinsically safe and they're able to operate in high stress conditions, like dangerous conditions, like mining, like we mentioned before, you can't use those devices. You're going back to pen and paper.
That's right.
That's a terrible experience. That is a lot of time wasted.
So we're fighting against.
Yeah, everything is moving away from pen and paper. There's still a few processes out there that are like that, but we're getting very close to them.
The amount of times I had to put my name and everything on a healthcare form still these days seems a little manual.
A little bit.
So looking at the energy sector, right? And one of them that I like to get into is a little bit of the defense industry, right? And that's something that I've seen some of the videos online that you guys have posted. Super cool. You're watching some of these devices out in the field today. They're doing what they got to do, right? You know, security is everywhere, and the way that you look at security and ecosystems from the military side is quite interesting as well. So, where do you see the flexibility in operating system choices when decided military? Oh, let's say defense. I'm going to use the word defense.
Defense, yeah. So in the military or DoD, so if you think of DoD, there's requirements. Once again, they have certifications that they use a lot of Linux and they use a lot of Windows. There's a few waivers here and there for Android or iOS, but security is key. It's the number one thing in terms of the actual DoD, Department of Defense. And when you talked about FIPS, you talked about FIPS. FIPS drives are, once again, encrypted, secure drives that are used in a lot of the DoD applications. The other thing that we're seeing now in DoD, or in terms of defense, is actually pre-boot authentication software. So the idea that there's actually security on this device before you can even boot it up. And once you boot it up, then it starts going through those whole checks to see that, hey, something else didn't tamper or come within that. The idea of that software being that secure and that many layers of security, whether it be the other things we have in terms of Getac, the idea that drives are removable. So you can pull the drives out. So you have some confidential information. You just pull the drive out, you throw the drive in the trash, you take the computer to the next mission. That's what our customers use it for, and that's the customization that Getac does.
It's a level of encryption on the hard drive itself. Do you find that some of your customer base are also looking for almost like a two-factor authentication before they even boot up the operating system?
That's a standard practice today in terms of any kind of public sector, right? In terms of, and as well as enterprise. We talked about enterprise, we talked about public sector. Two-factor authentication, whether it be a Windows Hello camera, whether it be an RFID reader or a khaki card or any of those things, to make sure that that security is there and you have that second level of authentication. It's very important in terms of the industry.
I heard that a lot at HIMSS. It's a healthcare trade show, where the Veterans Association, the amount of CAT cards that you have to be able to authenticate yourself before you authorize them to even be able to use some of the machines is it's a mandatory requirement.
I'm going to tell you, one of the devices that took my breath away when I saw one of your engineers was working on it when we were setting up the booth at Distributech. And you got to keep me honest here. I forget the model, but this was a full-blown mobile mission control server that you were telling me pretty much is customizable in many different ways, and I think weighs something like 50 pounds. Like, tell us a little more about that device.
So yeah, it's the X600. It's actually our portable. It's actually, there's two devices. There's X500 and X600, but it's a 15-inch. But it's a server, so it's got a whole slice. You can actually put 8 different hard drives in that device. It's got Xeon processors. And once again, our clients, whether it be in enterprise, whether it be in the military, they're using this as a mobile server. It weighs up to 25 pounds, to your point. It's ruggedized, 3-foot drop. It's got the heat, but it does work in hot, works in the cold, works in the rain. And once again, that mission critical ability to provide a server in that form factor is very unique in terms of what Getac does in terms of our product offerings. And once again, that's what really is part of our DNA and our heritage at Getac, is that customization. In terms of the market.
Imagine running with one of these things. You've got like a 25 pounds on your back server that is supposed to do, God knows, like you're thinking like comms, managing comms, being able to move people. Like you're talking about literally picking up an entire base. Like let's say of 16 people in a matter of minutes, collapsing it, taking the most crucial information and moving it. There's no tear down required. You shut the lid and you're running. I saw we saw at least on one of the videos, that military example, like obviously it's not the same unit, but just the fact that it's mobile and it can move, you can move relatively quickly with it is impressive.
And I know, I love that, because when we talk about SOTI and Getac's partnership, we talk about mission critical mobility, and I think it's these types of devices that really set you guys apart, right? It's not everyone can build those. Not everyone, if they can build it, is not going to be able to position it in the defense industry. So I think that's also where you guys have that brand recognition, you have the alignment in the industry that I think really sets you guys apart there as well.
Yeah, it's a great benefit of working at Getac and be able to customize things, whether it be the idea of like putting, for instance, LiDAR within a device, right? For using that for networking connectivity. We've done that. We've put in, different cards, whether military connectors, all those things that need for that mission critical for the Department of Defense when they're trying to accomplish a mission, that's all built into the Getac DNA. And the fact that we can customize it, create custom BIOSes, create custom operating systems, our customers really just love that. And the fact that SOTI really helps us with the whole management part of the system, the idea that you could basically turn up, you can have a system, it's dead, you could activate your SOTI, have that system up and running within a couple minutes. It once again speaks to what the mission is and what the customers are required out there.
And I gotta ask one other thing, and I think for some industries, I think this is gonna be quite obvious, but one of the things I would love for you to kind of talk to our viewers about a little bit is, sometimes we get this question of rugged versus consumer. Where do the cost savings come in? Like, why would somebody select, like, hey, I got this phone, I got this, it runs some apps. Can you tell us a little bit about, like, where's the cost savings? Where's this mission critical, rugged versus the consumer landscape sit?
So the cost savings is not when you buy the device. The cost savings is everything after. It is the cost of support. It is the cost of downtime. The fact that if you have a consumer grade product, it goes out, you got to go take it to the shop to get it repaired. That takes you time. We at Getac, if you actually have, and our devices do break and they do fail, but we'll actually forward stock you parts. So you can actually fix those devices right there at the field or in the depot. The other part is the ongoing support. So the idea that, consumer grade devices, they might last, let's say 3-4 years. Getac devices, we have customers who use our devices sometimes over 10 years. So the idea of the refresh, the actual, changing out the devices, also in a lot of the utilities or the public sector, there's a lot of other things that go with the computer system. You have vehicle docking systems, you have the power systems within all those things. When you have to replace every one of those things, that adds more money to the cost. So if you bought a consumer grade product and it changes every 2 or 3 years, you got to change all that other equipment out in the trucks, that costs a lot of money. And our customers like the idea of having one system that works for 5 years with our standard warranty, or you can go 5, 7, sometimes even 10 years with the actual devices.
Love that.
So we're talking longevity. Longevity and the ability to be able to integrate with current solutions that are in vehicles today or wherever they're situated. I think that's the key there, Mikhail, is where I hear consumer grade. You're looking at your average life cycle. I'm going to say, let's say 2 to 3 years, right on average, right? Where if I grab a Getac device and a part breaks, I'm going to make it up. Memory, I can swap it out. Wi-Fi card doesn't work, I can swap it out. It's almost like I don't remember if you had this in school, but there was like a breadboard where you could plug in the electrical components and turn on the lights. It's very similar because you can just snap and play in that set. I love that because if I want more memory, I can get more memory. Right?
And I got to say one more thing, because it's like, this is actually another area where I found really, really interesting. And I think for our viewers out there, it's going to really help kind of put this whole together of like why these devices are as mission critical and as integrated as they are. And me and you were chatting about this earlier. Is when you go take this device and you put it into a police vehicle, the actual points of how it connects to the vehicle, to the antennas, to all these sensors and triggers, I think that's just amazing. You can't do that with a consumer device. You can't do that with most devices. So when you start looking at the ecosystem across these different industries, and let's say particularly the police vehicle, just being able to have that docking station and being able to make sure that everything works when you get in, I don't know. I just think that is such a key area. And I don't know if our viewers kind of always see the value of that when you do that. But honestly, to me, that's what that whole integrated ecosystem really becomes.
I think it's crucial. The ecosystem, when you're able to build out an ecosystem that is just almost like a clip in and play is the word I'll use, it changes your entire world and the work, how you do your work day in, day out.
Yeah. The other enhancements that we've seen in terms of the industry recently is the idea of dual SIMs, right? Dual carriers, having that out there, having a device so you can have an eSIM and a physical SIM in the devices and be able to swap those out or hot swap them on the fly. So once again, that connectivity piece. So if you say I'm in the US and then my AT&T signal's not working, I can switch over to T-Mobile, and that T-Mobile signal will keep me going for my day and keep my job working. So I can keep getting my missions done.
Yeah, we could talk about this for hours. Yeah. There's so many more questions I have.
Yeah, with us coming close to short out of time, Charlie, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
So with that being said, if anybody wanted to contact you per se about anything that we've discussed today, or maybe they're interested in some of your products or they have ideas that they want to talk to you about, what's the best way that some of our viewers can contact you?
You can reach me via email. It's charlie.gibbs, Gibbs, @getac.com.
Beautiful. Thank you for letting our viewers know. And so, back to our viewers, if you found anything really meaningful or valuable in any way with this episode, do us a favor, click that like button, smash that subscribe button, and do me a favor, leave a couple of comments. Let us know how we did. Or if you're interested in a specific subject, leave that in there as well. We'd love to be able to read through your comments. And with that being said, thank you for tuning in to SOTI TV, and we'll see you next time.